In court once again, the case of the Connecticut stepmom accused of holding her stepson captive inside their home for 20 years.
Who else is in the house? Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here.
Police say that man was freed after he started a fire inside their home in order to get first responders to arrive and to save him. Now, Kimberly Sullivan, the victim's stepmom, is making some bold requests in court. Her stepson's identity has been hidden from court records and from the public, but she's demanding that protection be taken away. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. The requests that Kimberly Sullivan is making in court have been described as, quote, appalling by her stepson's biological mom. This is video of Kimberly Sullivan in court today for a hearing in Connecticut. Her attorney has made several requests that were heard in this hearing, and that includes a request that Kimberly Sullivan's stepson's identity, who she allegedly held against his will for 2 decades, be made public. Now, according to the New York Post, the victim's biological mom called that request appalling. So much of this story is about the secrecy of what was allegedly going on inside that house on Blake Street in Waterbury. I put Kimberly Sullivan's name into truthfinder.com and her profile does come up. Truthfinder is a really important tool that we use here at Law&Crime. Our partner Truthfinder is the powerful public records search service that we use to do research here at Law&Crime. And you talk about a useful resource. You plug in a name, you can get address information, criminal history, and more. And let me just say, it can also give you some peace of mind. You don't have to work in true crime to be able to use truthfinder.com. It's one of the largest public record search services in the US, and with a paid subscription, you get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone in your area. You can even look up registered sex offenders near you. You might even be shocked if you look yourself up. See what it comes up with. You can stay informed, stay safe, research public records with Truthfinder. Go to truthfinder.com/OTC. Now, before we get into what happened in court today, I want to get you back up to speed about how we got to this point, and there's a lot to talk about. Sullivan was arrested in March after police say she held her stepson captive for 20 years. 2 decades. This is not a typo. 20 years. That's the allegation. Now, all of this was uncovered when authorities responded to a house on Blake Street in Waterbury, Connecticut. It was a house fire at Sullivan's home in February, and they found her outside the house.
Come down, come down.
Come on down.
Who else is in the house? Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here.
How many other people?
Help him out.
Listen,
That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yes.
But your stepson's still inside?
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
yes.
come out. Come down the road. Come on, come on. It's not safe to stay here. Come on. All right, here he is.
All right, my dog is shaking.
I know. Come down here.
In the body camera video, you can see police carrying someone to an ambulance.
Got one victim right here.
That victim is a man who wants to be called S. He is now 32 years old, and when he was rescued earlier this year, police say he weighed 68 pounds. Now, he released a statement weeks after his rescue where he said he is now doing better and recovering, but you have to think of the long road ahead for that man when it comes to getting his health back. He did say that he started that fire because he wanted first responders to get to that house and get him out. Now, since emergency responders took him from the home and he's been recovering, he's changed his name. He's been going by S publicly, but as far as his first and last name, that has been changed. Where he lives, those are all pieces of information that the state of Connecticut wants to remain confidential. Now, S's stepmom was arrested weeks after the fire on March 12th. Kimberly Sullivan faces charges, including assault in the 1st degree, kidnapping in the 2nd degree, and unlawful restraint in the 1st degree. Let's get into the allegations of what S says Kimberly Sullivan did to him for 20 years. They're allegations that are difficult to comprehend. They're chilling to listen to. And before I get into the disturbing details, I want to be clear that Kimberly Sullivan and her attorney say that she is completely innocent. S says he was 11 years old when Kimberly Sullivan pulled him out of public school in Waterbury, and he just fell through the cracks. He was not heard from until February when the firefighters responded to his home for that fire. Now, even though he says the school's administrators and teachers told the state of Connecticut that they were concerned about S's treatment while he was in school, DCF visited twice. Social workers didn't find enough problems in the home to warrant removing S from it. Now, what S says was actually happening was Kimberly Sullivan allegedly keeping him locked in a room sometimes for the entire day. She would allegedly only feed him small amounts of food and give him just a little bit of water. In court documents, S told detectives that some of his earliest memories, it was actually sneaking out of his room at night to get food and water. But when it was found that he was doing that, he says he was locked in his room. He recalled drinking from a toilet because he would only get 2 cups of water a day, and that was really just the beginning. Waterbury police, after the fire and after Kimberly Sullivan's arrest, released these pictures that just show some very difficult conditions inside the house after the fire. Recently, Kimberly Sullivan did file a motion to be able to return to her home on Blake Street in Waterbury, which the court allowed. She also requested her GPS monitor be removed. That's something that was still up in the air heading into today. S says that he was kept inside that room for such long periods of time that he kept track of the years by listening to a radio near his room where he would listen to NASCAR races and UConn basketball. That's how he knew what time of year it was and what year it was. Initially, a judge gave Kimberly Sullivan a $300,000 bond. She posted that. Kimberly Sullivan, again, is wearing that GPS monitor.
Come on, come down, come down.
Come on down.
Who else is in the house? Who else is in here? Do you live
My
here?
stepson is in here.
How many other
help
people?
him out.
Listen,
That's
you
it.
have
I
to
have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yes.
But your stepson's still inside?
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
Yes.
come out. Come down the road. Come on, come on.
Now, this is more body camera video that we've received over the past couple of months of the night that S allegedly set himself free. He claims, again, that Kimberly Sullivan locked him in a room inside their house, sometimes for 22, if not 24 hours a day. This is the body camera video that we have of police speaking with S in the ambulance, but as you can see, it's been heavily redacted and we can't hear what they're talking about. But when the conversation ends, the audio comes back and you can hear officers react to what they just heard this 68-pound man tell them.
Says he hasn't had a shower in over a year.
At that point, it appears that S began to tell police what he said was allegedly happening to him inside of that house, allegedly at the hands of Kimberly Sullivan. We say allegedly because Kimberly Sullivan has denied the story. She says she is innocent through her attorney and she has pleaded not guilty to charges. Officers seem though to be understanding that this fire they responded to is a little bit more than just a regular house fire.
You want me to hang by stepmom for right now or what?
What?
You want me to hang by stepmom for right now? Or?
Yeah, get her,
I'm trying to find out where the hell she is. Because I just got
she's
here.
waiting in a car down here.
Okay.
Get her,
All of her info and everything?
we already got all of her info. I just don't want her to go anywhere.
S told detectives that Sullivan's 2 now adult biological children also knew about his alleged abuse inside the home. Now, both of Sullivan's daughters, they have not been charged in connection to this case. In court, we have learned that Kimberly Sullivan is currently living with one of her daughters as she's out on bond. As we go back to the night of the fire, a detective was able to catch up to Sullivan in a parking lot just a few blocks from her house. This is body camera video about an hour after police had their initial conversation with S, so officers appear to know that something's up.
Hello, are you Kimberly? Hi, I'm Detective Pesh. I investigate all the fires that happen in the city, so I just wanted to get an idea of what you know or what happened.
Parts of this conversation's also been redacted, but you can hear Sullivan say that she thought the fire started because of S's TV catching on fire.
When did he say that?
He said he woke up and the TV was in flames.
Okay. Where was he when he said that to you?
Coming out of his room.
He was coming out of his room?
Yeah. I guess he fell asleep and I guess he, I don't know, smelled the smoke.
So take me right to the beginning of when you know there's a fire or there's smoke.
I smelled it.
Okay, where were you?
In bed.
In bed? Where's your bed?
In bed,
Downstairs,
right
upstairs?
upstairs.
Upstairs, okay.
Yeah.
You smelled it, so then what happened then?
That he was, I guess he was sleeping, he passed out.
Okay. But what did you do though, specifically?
I was screaming for him. I was
Okay.
screaming it, for him, and I was trying to go into the room, but it was just, there were just flames. So he came out of the room. You imagine he woke up, he came out of the room.
So when you saw him at first, he was sleeping?
No, he was talking.
Okay.
But he said that he couldn't come out of the room because there were flames.
Okay.
And I was standing like back because I could see them, and I said, just come out.
And he couldn't get out because of the flames?
Right. I said, just come out. Just come out.
Okay.
Just come out,
Did he run through him?
I guess he did, yeah.
Okay.
I guess he did.
Was the door locked in his room or no?
No.
Okay. Is it normally locked?
No.
Okay, it's normally open?
No, yeah.
And he has free reign to go out of there whenever he wants?
Yeah.
Okay. Does he have any mental challenges or anything?
The audio cuts out again as they apparently discuss S's mental health history, and you can hear the questioning from the detective start to get more specific about what kind of movement S was allowed to have in the home. And there's an interesting inflection in Sullivan's response. Court records say that Sullivan told the detective that S had, quote, a lot of problems, but isn't diagnosed with any conditions because S's biological dad, who died in January 2024, was against doctors. She claims to have brought S to a psychiatrist to be treated, but records of that have not been released. So it's unclear if that's true.
That's why I'm asking if there's a history of. Okay. So no, nothing like that in the past. Okay. So other than you, were you sleeping, you said, in your bed?
Yeah.
Okay. You smell smoke, right? You get up, you go to his room, right? And you're
I'm screaming.
screaming,
yeah.
yeah.
He must have been sleeping and just, I don't know. Just
Okay.
didn't realize until it was actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And you're telling him to get out of the room, because there's flames there.
He was scared because of the...
Yeah, and I get that.
And I said, just go through them, whatever, just come out of the room.
Yeah. And where do you go at that point?
We both went downstairs.
So he was able to get out with you at that time?
Yeah, we
Okay.
both went downstairs,
Okay.
And I was trying to hit 911 and I was just so shaken, it took me a second.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I get that. All right. You're going to be here for a little while?
Well, I was going to go to the hospital.
Okay. Is somebody with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's with you?
My daughter,
Oh, okay.
husband.
Oh, okay. Do they live at the house too? It's just you and your son? Okay. And you're going to go to the hospital? Okay.
That's where my other daughter is. So
Oh, that's where she is?
she's there
Okay.
too.
All right, I'm fine with that. He's at St. Mary's, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where you're going to go now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If I need to talk to you later, you don't have a problem talking with me, right? Okay. Thank you.
You can't hear Sullivan say that she would be available beyond that conversation or if she nodded her head yes. According to the arrest affidavit, when the detective tried to talk to Sullivan at a later date, she said she had spoken with the lawyer and would no longer be cooperating with the investigation. Now, Kimberly Sullivan's defense, for as shocking as these allegations have been, it's been publicly robust, let's just say. Her defense attorney, Iotis Kaloidis, has not held back in his criticism of the alleged victim S. He's not held back in defending his client, Kimberly Sullivan. We actually had him here on our show a couple of months ago, and this is what he said when I asked him about why the public should not believe what S is alleging against his client.
Right now, those are just one person's allegations. And what I can tell you, having done this more than 20 years now, is a lot of times these allegations fall apart. There are problems with the story. And unfortunately, I can't get into all those details now because a lot of this is ultimately going to come out at trial when certain people take the stand through cross-examination, through the introduction of our testimony from our witnesses and our experts that we anticipate. What I can tell you is I've had extensive conversations with my client, and she disputes the claims. She says it didn't happen. And, so I understand the whole world wants to believe the claims that are being made by her accuser, but I think those claims need to be examined critically. It's not enough to say, I was locked in a room. Look, there's a lock on the outside of the door, and then nothing more. And that's what we're really going to do throughout this process and at the time of trial.
And that brings us to what happened in court today. A judge ruled that Kimberly Sullivan is going to get access to her stepson's new name and address to prepare for her defense, which is a win for Sullivan and her defense team. The judge decided, though, she will need to keep her GPS monitoring device on. This is according to News 12. Joining us now to talk more about this case is trial attorney and family law attorney Randy Kessler. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. This has been a case that we've been following pretty closely since it broke earlier this year. The argument that Kimberly Sullivan's attorney is making is that her accuser, her stepson, this man who was 68 pounds when he was found in that house after the fire in Waterbury, that his name should be known. He's been going by S. What goes into the decision in these cases to, in this case, it's related to medical records and whether it should be redacted and whether the public should know his name, who he is, who's accusing Kimberly Sullivan of some pretty brutal crimes?
Well, preliminarily, even before we get to that, I hope nobody that watches his public appearances is on the jury, because he's coming out strong, right? He's coming out attacking someone who was a victim, whether it was a victim of his client or somebody else. So that's automatically a decision they made to go totally on the offensive. Should the public know who it is? Maybe. Should the public know because they can come forward with witnesses or ID or information? Maybe. But probably in this case, this child is so sensitive and so on the edge, and maybe has significant mental health concerns. You do want to insulate the victim to some degree. Stepmom, defendant, the accused, has a right to know who's confronting her, but she knows who's accusing her. It's not being hidden from her. She knows who it is. It's her stepson that she raised. So saying he's hiding his identity, he's not hiding his identity. If they want to investigate, if anyone has the records from this kid growing up, it would be the person she lived with, who is the defendant. The person he lived with. So it's a bunch of, the best defense sometimes is a good offense, and that seems to be the strategy. We're just going to go on the offense and say that we have the right to know this information. State's not giving us this information. Don't trust the state. Throw the case out. That's about what I think it boils down to.
It seems like there's this jockeying back and forth with the discovery process, and now it's about the medical records. The state of Connecticut has said that they need more time to redact the records because of the victim who goes by S, his name and personal information, and then Kimberly Sullivan's attorney saying, actually, we need those records to prepare for trial. What is that back and forth like typically between attorneys, and what is maybe not the specific timeline in this case, but what's considered the fair way to go about the process of handing over the information you should, but at the same time not dragging your feet and making sure everybody has the information they need?
So usually it's a lot more simple, right? If they're minor children, there are a lot more protections. He's no longer a minor. Sometimes you don't know who the accuser is when it's a stranger on stranger crime, when it's a kidnapping. In this case, stepmom knows who it is. So it's not like she's trying to find out who it is. She wants the medical records, and the medical records are important. What kind of crime was committed? Was there starvation? Was he denied and deprived food and access to medicine? So I don't understand why they're withholding any of those medical records and why they're trying to shield him because everyone knows who he is. The documents should be produced, and what they could be doing is giving the defense an argument for appeal, saying we were not able to prepare our defense because we did not get the information. So as long as they're legally obligated to produce it. They're going to have lawyers advise them. They're going to follow their lawyer's advice. The defendant is going to get the information because they need to know, how to prove that there was an abuse. Was his 68-pound loss, was it 68 pounds because he had some medical condition that had nothing to do with the conditions of the house? They're going to be entitled to as much information as exists that is anyway relative to the claims, which is that mom starved him, stepmom starved him, stepmom did this to him, stepmom, didn't let him go to the bathroom, made him drink toilet water, whatever it was. All that information, defendant has a right to it. I don't know that it's going to help, but if they don't get it, that's sort of the lawyer technology, right? We're saying, well, you didn't have a fair trial because we didn't get all the information. That's, you don't have A or B or C, you go to D, E, and F, and D, E, and F are, well, we didn't have the documents, instead of she didn't do it, she wasn't there, somebody else did it, which I understand now, maybe she's saying dad did it, and dad can't defend himself because he's not alive.
It's a lot. And I think there's so many layers to the story. S, who's the victim in this case, he's 32 years old. Kimberly Sullivan is accused of keeping him pretty much locked in a closet, in his room, inside the home for 22 hours a day since he was 11 years old. And it's a story when it first broke that was just so shocking. And Kimberly Sullivan's defense, and we've had her defense attorney on, is that there's no locks in the house. There's no locks on the doors. This is a 32-year-old man who could have walked right out of the house, could have gotten help. I think the only physical abuse that he's accused her of is being slapping him in the face one time. So there's a lot of saying that what was the restriction that was actually on, this now 32-year-old man. How could that play out in court? Because, some of these cases can be very complicated, and it seems like this is one of them.
Right, but if I was on the prosecution's team, I'd say that might be a defense to why didn't he leave earlier. But, it didn't start off being 32 years old and a grown person well adapted in society. This person was trained or groomed or managed or monitored or whatever you want to call it. And so sooner or later, victims, all you have to do is say, boo, and they jump and they're scared, right? You treat someone like that, and then you say, go ahead, the door's open, I dare you to walk out. You know what's going to happen. If you've grown up in that environment, it's like a pet, You can have a pet dog and open the door wide open, and the pet's not going to run out to the street because they know what's going to happen. They know that you're going to be mad at the pet. That saying that the door was unlocked, that's not enough, in my opinion, to stop all the charges. Especially because even if he didn't leave, you have a child that's only 68 pounds at full adult age, and you don't bring that child for medical treatment. You don't bring somebody in. That's a crime within itself.
There's no cameras inside this house that we know of that could have, shown what his life was like every day. So much of what police say happened, and the damage that it did to him is based off the fact that he was, police say, 68 pounds, which he's 32 years old, 68 pounds. That is just, it's still, even months later since we started talking to this, like I think about it, it's awful. And also, it's just the story that he told. I mean, he said in one of the pieces that he listened to UConn basketball games and NASCAR races to know what year it was because he wasn't allowed outside of the house. And it's like, that's such powerful stuff to read in a police report. He's going to have to say it in court. How can prosecutors get him ready? Because from what it seems, the cross-examination is going to be incredibly fierce if this goes to trial.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a tough one, right? The cross-examination looks like this lawyer is going to be aggressive. He's saying he's boldly out there accusing the victim of not really being a victim of his client. But if he attacks a victim, the jury could just ruin the day for the defendant. I mean, it's a very interesting cross-examination. Do you really want to cross-examine it and then you are re-victimizing the victim and your client gets saddled with having caused another trauma to the victim? So it seems like they've taken their stance and they're going to cross-examine him and they're going to try to scare him. Or maybe what they're doing is trying to convince the state that you, as a state, don't want to put this child through this 32-year-old man who's 68 pounds. Maybe it's going to be so terrible that you should cut a better deal and offer my client a little lesser sentence. I don't know the defense strategy, but it's complicated. It's complicated when you cross-examine a victim, but a victim this sympathetic, and if the victim just crumbles and doesn't know what to say, it's still not going to help the defense, in my opinion.
Will this victim have to testify in court? I mean, his to think of, if everything's true that's been alleged, the trauma that he went through, to then eventually be 68 pounds, the mental health issues that he must have. If he goes on does he have to go on the stand if Kimberly Sullivan takes this to trial?
So I think for two reasons. One's legal. I think, why build a circumstantial case when you have direct case? Why say, well, we've got psychologists and medical people and forensic people that have seen what's going on there. There had to be a crime that took place there. In this case, you have the person that was the eyewitness, that was the victim, that was sympathetic. But also, and again, I'm no psychologist and I don't know the situation, I can't imagine that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, somehow it would help this victim to testify against his abuser. I mean, it's got to, the converse is to go 10 or 20 years and he's rehabilitating and getting back on track, we hope. But he never did anything to confront this person. That's got to be a small part of it. And again, I'm not the psychologist, but they should get some psychology involved because that's probably also a big component of whether he should or should not testify. But I think to win the case, he's probably going to have to testify. Otherwise, the defense is going to have a field day because there's no right against self-incrimination when you're the victim, right? The victim can't say, I didn't have to testify because the state, the defense is going to say, you can hold that against them. They had the ability to prove that my client did something wrong by just asking him a question. They didn't even put the guy up. That's because they're afraid that they knew he was not going to really point the finger at my client. I mean, I think he's got to testify.
How do you prepare for that cross-examination? I don't know how Kimberly Sullivan's attorney, what his approach will be, but again, I mean, just from the news conferences, I mean, he's very aggressive in terms of the approach that he's taken. Typically, for a defense attorney, and you're going into a cross-examination and you're game planning out, how much of it is expected, I guess? Like, how prepared is an attorney? How often does the response come that you weren't expecting and you have to pivot in that moment? I know for like a TV interview that can happen from time to time, but that's much different than a case.
Not with me, right? I don't surprise you, do I?
I'm always on my heels, whenever Randy Kessler comes on the case.
There you go. So it's interesting because this is criminal, right? In civil, we have the right to take the deposition ahead of time of the witness, and we can ask them questions and know what they're going to say. We can ask written interrogatories and ask what their explanation of events is. But in a criminal case, this is the first crack they get at the guy, and you've got to be ready for everything. How do you prepare for that? It's very hard to have somebody role play and practice a cross-examination of somebody who's been through that. I imagine if the money's there, they're going to hire some expert psychologists to tell them what to expect, to tell them how to handle it. Because the last thing the defense wants to do is to make this victim even more sympathetic to the jury than he already is. They've got to find a way to be polite, be kind, and just guide him down a path that makes it clear that maybe he was mistaken. Maybe his memory isn't so good. Maybe it was the father that did this. Maybe the stepmom actually tried to intervene and was trying to save him but couldn't. I mean, you've got to figure a way to get something out of the witness, because if the witness is on direct, that's the end of the defendant. Unless you can get something to claw back some credibility and some sympathy for the defendant. She was also a victim. She didn't want to be in this position. She was going to be killed if she did anything. But again, we weren't there. He was there. I think the state has a harder time prepping him to be cross-examined than the defense has thinking about how to cross-examine. And remember, cross-examination, no matter how much you prepare, there's always that moment where you're watching the direct examination and you start thinking of things. And if you're a good defense lawyer, you think, I can pick holes in that. That one I leave alone. So he's going to get to learn on-the-job training as opposed to the victim who's going to testify on direct for the first time and say, here's everything I want to tell you. Then the defense is going to gear up and say, well, item number B, fine. But item number C you testified to, let me ask you a question about that. Item number 3, 4, 5. Boy, I don't know that I'd even want to do that cross-examination, as intellectually challenging as it might be. It just, who wants to be asking that kind of a victim questions that try to make him look like a liar?
Yeah, and the jury, I mean, so much will build up to that moment if this actually does go to trial. This case just from the beginning has just been mind-boggling is probably the best word to use, to just think of all the layers to it. I mean, have you ever seen a case like this before?
We were talking, unfortunately, I did have a case years ago that was well publicized, and it was on Dr. Phil and a whole bunch, where I represented a father who got divorced, and the child moved to Georgia, the mother changed the name, got remarried, and locked the child in a bathroom for 8 years. And when the child turned 18, put a list of the homeless shelters in Los Angeles, taped it to the child's jeans, put him on a bus to LA. Again, that was different because my client had no idea where the child was. It was before the internet, before you could just search on Facebook or social media, and had no idea. But the child was emaciated, and that woman went to jail for a long time. I just can't believe it's deja vu all over again. And my poor client, the father of the child. But it makes me think about this case where the other parent, the mom, wasn't involved for a long time. I understand, let the child live. You gave up your child. You thought dad and stepmom would be better. But don't you ever get curious what's going on? Don't you want to follow up? In this day and age where an internet search can find out a lot of stuff, it's sort of, there's some questions there that are going off in my head, especially given the last case that I was telling you about.
Yeah, no, and it's a complicated case. We'll see what happens, see if and when this actually will go to a trial. Randy Kessler, trial attorney, family law attorney. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for talking about this one with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.